DDR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Burkina Faso military government formalizes dissolution of all political parties.
Alors, je crois qu'en temps normal, la politique...
I believe that in normal times, politics by its nature is conflicting because it is a question of power and a question of interests.
High-level U.S. envoy arrives in Bamako amidst growing Sahelian sovereignty. Land ownership crisis in Monrovia as decades-long residents become homeless following forced evictions.
I've been here for 5 years now. My landlady says she can't pay for the place.
And legendary Nigerian musician Afrobeat pioneer Fela Kuti receives the most live Grammy Award. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Real Janko.
Many thanks for joining us this afternoon. We begin in Mali, where the U.S. officials in charge of African affairs is expected in Bamako this Monday. Nick Cheke's visit aims to renew bilateral cooperation between the United States and the countries of the Central Sahel. Several important issues, including the fight against insecurity and the economy, among others, will be at the heart of discussions during this trip. Abdullah Hassan reports.
The visit of Nick Checker, the United States envoy for African affairs, is seen as a step toward opening a new chapter in relations between Washington and Bamako. During his stay in the Malian capital, the former U.S. intelligence official will hold talks with foreign ministry officials and senior military leaders. The aim is to explore the possibility of renewed cooperation after years of strained relations. The visit also comes as the United States seeks to reposition its role in the Sahel amid shifting alliances and a changing security environment. Military cooperation has been limited in recent years following the rise to power of the transitional president, General Assimi Goïta, and Mali's withdrawal from several Western-led security partnerships. Sources say discussions may include intelligence sharing, military training, and counter-terrorism cooperation, particularly within the Alliance of Sahel States AES, which includes Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Economic and investment issues are also on the agenda following preliminary talks held in August 2025. After Mali, Nick Checker is expected to continue his Sahel tour with visits to Niger and Burkina Faso.
Abdullah Hassan await that report. Meanwhile, the armed forces of the Alliance of Sahel States, in coordination with Malian troops, carried out a series of strikes over the weekend against terrorist armed groups. In the southern part of the Menaka region, several positions belonging to the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara were neutralized. Meanwhile, the Malian army is strengthening its operational capacity with the arrival of new military equipment. Augustine Colley gives us the details.
According to a statement by the General Staff of the Armed Forces, the area operations were carried out on Saturday in the Akaba area along the Mali-Niger border. The strikes reportedly enabled the military to neutralize several fighters of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, which is active in the northern part of the country. The first airstrike targeted a group of about 20 terrorists riding motorcycles, while 2 tricycles loaded with logistics equipment were also destroyed. The statement adds that other terrorist groups and their support assets were detected and neutralized by AES area platforms. The army also confirmed the killing of Abu Agabas Ichmali, a feared terrorist leader linked to the January 29 raid in Anantabakat. These operational successes come as Mali continues to strengthen its military capabilities. Over the weekend, the country received new military equipment, including armored artillery, missiles launchers, and Turkish-made Akensi reconnaissance and combat drones. Authorities say the acquisitions are part of Mali's broader strategy to modernize its armed forces and enhance strategic autonomy in response to ongoing security challenges.
Details in this report from our Bamako correspondent Ali Chaman, presented by Augustine Colley. Also, security concerns are mounting in north-central Nigeria following an attack on Agwara local government area of Niger State by suspected terrorists. The incident has renewed fears of the spread of armed violence beyond Nigeria's traditional conflict zones, with implications for regional stability along the country's northwestern corridor. Our correspondent Yachinu Saseti reports.
Suspected terrorists have attacked Agwara local government area in Niger State, killing at least one person and destroying key public facilities, including the local police station and a church. Confirming the incident, the Niger State Police Public Relations Officer SP Wasiu Abiodun said the attackers overpowered a tactical police team deployed to the area and used suspected explosives to set the police station on fire. According to him, the assailants later moved to a church within the community, burning parts of the building before advancing to other locations where they abducted about 5 persons whose identities have not yet been confirmed. SP Abiodun said security agencies have launched surveillance and response operations in the area, adding that further updates will be made available as investigations continue. The attack has triggered strong reactions from religious and community leaders amid growing concern over repeated assaults in the border communities of Niger State. The Catholic Bishop of Kontagora Diocese and Chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria in Niger State, Most Reverend Bulus Yohana, has appealed to the federal government to establish a permanent military formation in Agwara, warning that sporadic deployments have failed to deter armed groups. For WADR, Yechin Sasitu reporting.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now to politics. Burkina Faso's military authorities last weekend dissolved all political parties and associations. The decision was taken at the Council of Ministers and, according to the executive, is aimed at curbing abuses attributed to these formations, whose activities had already been suspended since Captain Ibrahim Traore took power in 2022. But those multi-party democracy now stand in the way of the vision of the transitional authorities in Faso. Well, to shed light on this question, here is the analysis of political expert Wendiam Have Lakonde.
Alors, je crois qu'en temps normal, la politique.
I believe that in normal times, politics by its nature is conflicting because it is a question of power and a question of interests. And now has multipartyism become a problem? In my opinion, I think that this dissolution must be viewed in light of the country's security situation. You know that in normal times it is the responsibility of political leaders to work forward, finding a form of consensus on the country's major issues, including security. But we realized that in the case of Burkina Faso, the political class had difficulty finding a base of innovation on how to make democracy function in a context of insecurity. I think that was truly the question that was raised, and in my opinion, the politicians, I wouldn't say all of them, really struggled to find an answer to this question. We were much more in a logic of electoralism, that is to say, organizing elections to hand over the responsibility, while in my opinion, the context called for the need to truly rethink democracy and the political game as a whole.
Et le jeu politique dans son ensemble.
That was Wendiam Have Lakonde, a political analyst. Meanwhile, in Benin, the opposition party, the Democrats, reacts to the arrest of one of its members, Alassane Tigre. In a statement made this weekend, the opposition political party denounced the brutal intervention by its vice president. Alassane Tigre was placed on the arrest warrant at the end of last week for his alleged role in an attempted coup of December 2025. Here is a report filed by Aziz Adam Sule in Cotonou and presented by Christopher Aticho.
The opposition party, Les Democrats, has broken its silence a few days after the arrest of its vice president, Alassane Tigre. The political group denounced irregularities observed in the procedures and called for impartial justice. Eugene Azatasu, one of the vice presidents of the party, Les Democrats, states, this situation is yet another testament to the non-respect of the legal procedures in force regarding questioning. In accordance with the party's political line, the Democrats, who reject any seizure of power by force, strongly and unequivocally condemned any attack on the institutional order from the very first hours following the event of December 7, 2025. The Democrat Party wishes to strongly reiterate that in a republic, no one can presume guilty solely by virtue of a link of affiliation, kinship, or proximity. This can in no case constitute a guarantee of guilty. While information regarding an unanswered summons is circulating on social media, the political group denies this and indicates that Alassane Tigri received notification. The party of Boni Yayi calls on its members and supporters for calm and peace for the release of its vice president whose health condition is worrying.
Custody correspondent Adam Aziz Sulei's report voiced by Christopher Aticho. In Ghana, former Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia has been chosen to lead the new patriotic party into the 2028 general elections after winning the party's nationwide presidential primaries. Dr. Bawumia crossed the required 50% threshold, polling more than 110,000 votes when results from all constituencies were collected and certified at the party's headquarters. Electoral Commission officials who supervised the process confirmed his victory, while the former vice president has already promised to unite the party and focus on recapturing power in 2028. Nadidi Tete has the rest of the story.
The declaration followed the collation of results from all 276 constituencies across the country under the supervision of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia secured 110,643 votes, representing 56.48% of the total valid ballots, surpassing the constitutional requirement to clinch the flag bearer position. Here is an official of the Electoral Commission making the declaration.
196,462 votes were cast. Out of these votes, 561 were ballots rejected. On the basis of these results, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia obtained 56.48%. Therefore, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia had been duly elected presidential candidate for New Patriotic for 2028 elections.
Businessman and former Asin Central MP Kennedy Ohini Japan placed second with 46,554 votes, while former Food and Agriculture Minister Brian Champong followed with 36,303. Former Education Minister Yose Educhum and former General Secretary Kwabene Japan trailed. Moments after the announcement, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia promised to rally all factions of the party ahead of the next general election.
My election today communicates a broad-based appeal across the party, and I need to draw directly on that capital to unite the party as one of the crucial steps to winning power in 2028.
Delegates across all 16 regions voted to select the candidate who will lead the party's campaign in the 2028 general elections in Ghana. For WDR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
Elsewhere in Liberia, hundreds of residents in Monrovia have been left homeless after security officers forcibly evicted families from their houses on 5th Street early Saturday morning. The operation, carried out by court sheriffs with armed police support, followed a ruling in favor of a private landowner. However, the action has sparked public outrage and renewed scrutiny of land ownership laws and due process protections in the country. Many of the affected occupants say they legally bought their properties in the 1980s and 1990s and had lived there undisturbed for decades. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Packer reports.
The court's decision and the subsequent eviction have sparked a heated debate regarding land titles, the rights of long-term occupants, and the potential for abuse within the Liberian judiciary system. The lack of a comprehensive and transparent land management system has created an environment crazy for conflict, leaving vulnerable populations at risk of displacement over the years in Liberia. The affected residents expressed shock and disbelief at the sudden loss of their homes, asserting that they possess documentation to support their claims of ownership.
We supposed to get our people to Utah, that people can relocate, no compensation, no retaining of cash, but they help us start on being into the act. It's embarrassing for some parents with 2, 3 living children. Where you telling to go?
We got 27-bedroom house, and this property was bought by my father. To my uttermost surprise, there was no awareness. Nobody came and created awareness that the property had been their house, or they are coming to carry on invasion. To my uttermost surprise, we just seeing people this morning.
I've been here for 5 years now. My landlady says she can't pay for the place.
The displaced residents now face an uncertain future, struggling to find shelter and basic necessities. The incident also raises concerns about the potential for similar evasions in other parts of the country where land disputes remain unresolved. They are, however, calling on the government to intervene in the matter. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Burkina Faso military government formalizes dissolution of all political parties. High-level U.S. envoy arrives in Bamako amidst growing Sahelian sovereignty. Land ownership crisis in Monrovia as decades-long residents become homeless following forced evictions. Still ahead in the news. Legendary Nigerian musician and Afrobeat pioneer Fela Kuti received posthumous Lifetime Grammy Award. We'll also have press review, guest interview, and sport news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Nigerian legendary musician and Afrobeat pioneer Fela Anikulapo Kuti has made history nearly 3 decades after his death by becoming the first African to receive the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. The honor, awarded posthumously in Los Angeles on the eve of the 68 Grammy Awards, has reignited conversations around African representation, cultural recognition, and Fela's enduring political legacy. Usman Omar reports.
Animal talk does start again. Dash them human rights.
3 decades after his passing, the global music establishment has formally honored one of Africa's most defiant cultural voices. The Recording Academy has named Nigerian Afrobeat pioneer and political activist Fela Anikulapo Kuti as a recipient of the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, making him the first African to receive the distinction. Fela, who died in 1997, was celebrated not only for creating Afrobeat, a genre that fused jazz, funk, Yoruba rhythms, and high life, but also for using music as a weapon against military dictatorship, corruption, and social injustice in Nigeria. Speaking ahead of the ceremony, members of the Kuti family described the award as long overdue, noting that Fela was never nominated for a Grammy during his lifetime, despite his global influence. Artists, designers, and cultural commentators say the recognition underscores how African excellence is often acknowledged late by global institutions. One of such voices is Afrobeat promoter and cultural advocate Yemi Fisayo, who says the award validates Fela's impact and sent a message to a new generation of African artists.
Fela is well deserved, an icon, Afrobeat icon. It's something that should have been done a long time ago, but it's happening now. I think that's the most important thing. It's a great time for the Kuti family. It's a great time for Afrobeat, the founder of Afrobeat. You know what I mean? So I think it's very interesting that we get to celebrate this today. It's a win for the culture. It's a win for Afrobeat. It's a win for the industry as a whole.
Fela's continuous influence to echo across generations, inspiring contemporary Afrobeat stars and global musicians alike. Beyond music, he remains a symbol of resistance, African unity, and artistic courage. For many observers, the Grammy honor is not just about Fela, but about Africa finally being seen and heard on its own terms.
Now hear my argument.
Usman Omar there with a report on Nigerian legend musician Fela Kuti.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's join Chenusa Setu in Abuja for the press review.
Let's begin with the nation. Defense Minister General Musa shares how joint operation foiled coup attempt at planning stage. Electoral reform bill at harmonization stage, House of Representatives. 80 Kurmin-Wali abductees escape from kidnappers' den. These were part of worshippers kidnapped in Kaduna last week. Fela honored with Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, a historic moment for Africa there. Moving to Nigerian Tribune, we're winning war against terrorism, Defense Minister says, and this comes a day after attacks in Niger State on Sunday. Federal government to arraign perpetrators of Benue killings Monday, which is today. West African leaders agree on permanent regional security framework. Rising music star Ifunanya Wangene dies after sneak bite. A sad story there. And over to Vanguard. 2027 polls. Fear of postponement looms over delayed electoral law. On the entertainment scene, Grammys 2026. Again, South Africa's Tyler outshines Nigeria's Burna Boy, Davido, Ira Star in African music category. Police probe 21 persons over illegal mining in Zamfara State. Petrol price surge sparks calls for crude subsidy. And in sports, Nigeria's Victor Osimhen reaches 200 goals as Nigerian women shine abroad. That's it on Press Review. Back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Chenusa Setu in Abuja for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest interview this afternoon focuses on the legendary Nigerian musician and Afrobeat pioneer, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, who has made history nearly 3 decades after his death by becoming the first African to receive the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. The honor, awarded posthumously in Los Angeles on the eve of the 68th Grammy Awards, has reignited conversations around African representation, cultural recognition, and Fela's enduring political legacy. Our guest is Redzi Jugo, a human rights lawyer who analyzes the impact of Kuti's music on human rights and the fight against injustice.
It goes without saying that Fela Kuti is arguably Africa's most radical music voice in human rights. And to say very clearly that this was even decades before the concept became mainstream. His Afrobeat wasn't just music, it was systematic documentation of state violent resistance, not to talk of it being a blueprint for artistic activism. And I dare say that this largely influenced global human rights advocacy as we know it today. All you need to do is to look at selections over the years.
Albums like Zombie from Fela Kuti openly criticized the military at the time. How important is artistic freedom in exposing state violence and authoritarianism, especially in repressive regimes?
It is so much. Now, we say this because anybody who is in Africa today knows that where the concept of democracy and the freedom to be able to express oneself, we are still not where we need to be. Because with all the boasts that African nations can lay to being as progressive and as democratic as they need to be, we still have incidences across the continent of repressions, especially when it comes to the very hallmark that should show that democracy is instituted in those countries during electioneering. Uganda is a clear case of that in just recent times. As we speak, elections have been concluded, but things are still not uhuru. So to be able to get from the 70s a situation whereby we would speak, and at that time, let us not forget, it was largely the military junta that were in effect and running this country. So to be able to take a stand and be able to sing saying about mass atrocities that were going on at that time, and to fearlessly so do, and to document this at a time where there was a lot of repression. At that time, he stood as someone who was teaching the continent that there was a need to be responsible, there was a need to document, and there was a need for accountability by the state. And if there is nothing else that anybody will remember, it is that all of that has now accumulated in what we now know as it being as fashionable as possible to speak around human rights or to speak about it. And now you see people like Burna Boy or in Mali were able to all get in line with some of the core points that he was trying to make in his singing.
Nearly 3 decades after his death, Fela has received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. What does this recognition say about the global acknowledgement of African artists who fought for human rights through culture?
It says a lot. It says that even as unpopular as taking a stance for a thing as germane as speaking about the need for the state to be accountable to its citizenry, to do right by citizenry, whether you're talking about human rights or economic rights, because you remember he also sang songs that spoke to educational systems like "Teacher, Don't Teach Me Nonsense." Till today, speaking about whether our educational systems are where they need to be, and we're talking about the history textbooks that has been introduced into junior secondary schools, and whether or not removing the Igbo people from that was a right thing to do, or it was an infringement on their human rights. These are things that were captured in songs like "Teacher, Don't Teach Me Nonsense" or the IMF, that was spoken to in songs that Beast of No Nation, for instance. So all of this and many more of his songs set the tone for us to be able to look back and say it is as relevant as if it was sung or was inspired by the events that were going on today. So when you look back and you see the relevance of his music, one of the best things that he can do to perpetrate what he was trying to say and say to the nations and to the world, and to be able to ensure that we do not forget, and we ensure that we are guided by the same touchstone that he hoped for Africa and the world, is to give him this kind of award.
Redzi Jugo is a human rights lawyer. Well, in sports, Atletico Madrid and Italian Serie A side Atalanta have reached an agreement for the transfer of 28-year-old Nigerian international Ademola Lookman. The talented forward, who has impressed in recent seasons with his pace, creativity and versatility, is already in Madrid ahead of finalizing the deal. The transfer is currently subject to a successful medical examination and the completion of the contract formalities, but sources close to the club suggest the process is expected to be straightforward. And South Africa has been confirmed as the new host for the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON after Morocco reportedly withdrew from organizing the tournament just 2 months before its scheduled start. The 2026 edition of WAFCON is set to take place from March 17 to April 3 following a compressed schedule. The timeline reflects adjustments after the delayed 2024 tournament, which faced disruption due to global sporting events, including the Paris Olympic. The announcement was made on Sunday night by South Africa's Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Peace Mabe. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio Broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Umu Danyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WDR English. I am Sankule Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.
Broadcasting live. Broadcasting live. 24 hours.